Well, today we're going to talk about a topic that is really a great concern in our culture. The subject is bullying. You probably have seen it all over the country. Most of the major networks have done some programs about it. And one of the gentlemen that's been on this from the very beginning is our own Paul Coughlin. I say our own because he did get his beginning here at theDove. That is true. And I have to remind him of that once in a while now that he's big time and he's all over the place. I've seen you on CBN, the 700 Club. You've been on all the major networks. Look at this. Southern Oregon Magazine. I can't get away from you, Paul. There you are. Paul Coughlin in the Southern Oregon Magazine. And but congratulations. He is the president and founder of the Protectors, and very passionate about the subject of bullying. And his lovely wife Sandy also heads up Reluctant Entertainer, which, by the way, is soon rapidly outshining you, by the way.
Let's hope. I think it is. Some great things happening for Sandy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, good to see you, pal.
Great to see you.
The Protectors, man, did you ever think when you took this on that it would go the way it's going?
Yeah, Perry. No. You know, these small beginnings, and it's still in kind of that state, but this has been a crazy year by way of partnerships and expansion of our mission and purpose. But no, I mean, we started out asking the question, where is God's love and compassion and justice missing? And over time, we settled upon what we call the theater of bullying. And so we just set out to, to do our part in this world. Started out just faith-based because we looked at the world of freedom from bullying movements, the different organizations. We found there was no faith-based entity. So started there. Within about 2 months, we had more requests to speak in public schools than in private schools. Wow. And so now we have this dual track. We're a unique organization in that we work in faith-based organizations, but then also within public schools.
Well, the whole subject of bullying is really a big one, because one of the things that come out of this, how could God allow this to happen to me? And why, if God loves me, why this? And then where is the justice in this? Why isn't somebody stepping in and saying, hey, stop this?
Those are all great questions. And for many kids, bullying is their first experience with profound injustice. And how they handle that and how the adults around them help them handle that, I think really does speak to what might be their perception of a good and loving God. Wow.
Let me say to our listeners and viewers this morning as well, if you have any questions about this subject, you're more than welcome to be with us. Paul's going to be with us the rest of the hour. We'd love to hear from you. The phone number is 776-5368. And if you want to remain anonymous, we'll take that request as well. The phone number is 776-5368. It's getting big recognition. I know that you've been on the 700 Club. CBN recognizes that Saddleback took you on.
They did. I've enjoyed a very good relationship with Saddleback, particularly Kenny Luck, the men's ministry leader there. We spoke at a men's conference together and really hit it off with Kenny. I love him, his wife Chrissy. Spent time with them last month. Yeah, Saddleback, part of their justice and trafficking initiative, they have a justice ministry. And this is a topic they've been watching for a while. And through Kenny and other connections, a wonderful retired federal judge named Sam Smith, we were able to come to Saddleback, bring the Protectors' message to the church itself, to the community actually as a whole, to faith-based organization, public schools. We don't care. We just want to diminish bullying, and we'll do it wherever we're invited. Had a great training. It was webcasted. It's now going to a church in Texas wants to do the same thing. A church in Washington State wants to do the same thing. And as a result, we were able to make a profound difference in that community. Glad to say we're going to be returning to do a staff training.
All right. It was asked earlier this morning during the news show. Steve asked a good question. What's the difference between bullying and just being picked on?
Oh, great question. Yeah. Great question. So bullying is the superior use of power with the intention to harm another person over a period of time, usually for no good reason. It almost always includes humiliation and a threat of further abuse. Being picked on every once in a while, it's like the difference between being teased and taunted. Teasing can be kind of good-natured fun. You know, I have to tell my wife sometimes, she has to live with 3 men, that we tease the ones we love, right? Men kind of it's our love language many times. So we tease the people we love. Again, it's good-natured. Taunting is designed to harm another person. It's designed to really sear their psychological flesh. So yeah, being picked on every once in a while, it's not right, it's not good, but from a psychological and spiritual perspective, it doesn't cause harm. Bullying, over a period of time, the intention to harm another person, that is where the trouble is. That is where the pain is. That is where, according to one study, 7 out of 10 targets of serial bullying have difficulty forming lasting adult relationships. They specifically struggle with resentment, anger issues, and anyone who's familiar with AA will tell you that resentment is the #1 negative emotion that tethers people to drug and alcohol abuse. So being picked on every once in a while, that's life. It doesn't really cause a lot of harm. Bullying causes a lot of harm.
Wow. All right. Now, it appears that the first place we begin to see bullying is in the play yard, in the playground, in school. What would it be? Grammar school? Would it be?
Well, yeah. No, I'll have parents ask me, say, you know, my kindergartner is being bullied, and chances are that's probably not the case. Now, your kindergartner might be being pushed around by a very aggressive kid, another aggressive kid. Probably not bullying, because it needs to be intentional. It's more than just, I want that toy and I'm just going to grab it and take it out of your hands. That's not necessarily bullying.
Okay.
Bullying is when a person decides that they're going to intentionally harm another person for no good reason. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
The Canadian Broadcast Company ran a set of interviews a few months ago. I cannot recommend it enough. This woman, who's now a psychologist, who helps children who are targets of serial bullying, when she was in 4th grade, a girl moved into their area, into the class. She didn't like this girl, so she formed a club in 4th grade for the sole purpose for the other girls to hate this girl.
Wow.
She had all 10 of, she wrote a contract and said, you will swear to hate this girl in the class. All 10 girls signed the contract.
Whoa.
That is bullying.
Is it always physical?
Well, it starts out physical usually, particularly in elementary school, more from boys than girls. And then what happens is bullies they're sly predators. They know what they're about. They know they'll walk all kinds of lines. They realize that as they get older, they can't get away with it anymore. So they tend to go verbal bullying. So actually, by the time you get to late middle school, high school, about 80% of it is verbal, not physical.
All right, but physical can be like in younger schools. I mean, they'll push a kid down or something.
Yeah, absolutely, on purpose. Again, it's not 2 people of roughly the same, 2 people not getting along. That's not bullying. 2 people who just wrestle for a ball and one of them gets it, the other one doesn't. That's not necessarily bullying. Is when someone with superior power surveys the playground and says, oh, I'm pretty sure I could pick on that kid right there and get away with it. And so they'll make it look like it was an accident, but if you study what they actually did, it wasn't an accident at all.
Is it because maybe the kid is short? Maybe the kid is fat? Maybe the kid looks a little geeky? Those are the things?
Are you describing your life area? I think you're describing mine.
Well, geek, I get it. I mean, I work with you.
That's true.
You need counseling? I can call in Patrick Doyle.
Yeah, that's right. Let's bring him in. We have a 3rd chair. We think those things, and we've been led to believe those things. In reality, the #1 character trait that's going to make a kid a target of serial bullying, and we see this I see this in the church all the time, is that the child is non-assertive. So you could be like big, you could be big and strong, but a bully will sense, usually through body language, and by testing you as well, that that person's not going to push back. That I'm pretty sure I can verbally humiliate that big guy, or I could even punch him, and that person is just so gentle that they're not going to do anything about it. That is what bullies are looking for. Bullies are not looking for a fight. They're looking to overwhelm.
Okay. So what is the damage of bullying? I mean, we know that it can really harm you as far as your interpretation of God loving you or your relationship with God. But long term, what's the damage here?
Oh, it's profound, Perry. There's four characters, what we call the theater of bullying. We often think of the target, and rightly so. That target's going to have difficulty with lasting adult relationships. They just don't trust, and they often don't trust authority, which really let them down. Their scores go down big time. Wow. Often contributes to depression. Let's talk about the bully for a second. Mm-hmm. One study showed that a serial bully, they followed their lives. So let's say they start bullying around 3rd grade. They go all the way to 12th. They don't stop. They wanted to find out what kind of adult they became. 5 to 6 times more likely to commit a felony by their middle 20s. Wow. 4 to 5 times more likely to abuse their future spouse and future children. Bullies are also more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol as well. So horrible effects there. But let's talk about the bystander, which is almost every child. Studies show that when a person has the power to intervene and doesn't, that their capacity for courage, sympathy, and empathy diminish. So the children who are watching bullying take place and not helping, by the way, only about 13% of kids ever intervene.
Really?
And about 60 to 80% join the bully. This includes Christian kids. Our Christian children are sinning every week at school. They're given into the sin of cowardice. Revelation 21:8 tells us that cowards are in the same category as liars, thieves, adulterers, fornicators, sorcerers. Their lot is the second death in the burning lake of sulfur. I don't know what that burning lake of sulfur is. I know I don't want to be doing the backstroke in it, and I don't want my children in it either. Yeah. Cowardice is a sin, and our children are giving into it weekly at school, and no one is telling them that.
Boy, this just unpacks so much. So what are our kids getting out of Sunday school? What are they getting about life? And if only 13% are intervening. So let's talk about that just for a second before we take a break. What's an intervention by a young person? They just walk in and push the other guy away, or what do they do?
Well, we train assertive but nonviolent response to bullying. So a lot of what the Protectors does is we train kids how to do the right thing afraid, which is John Wayne's definition of courage. Mm-hmm. Courage is often doing the right thing afraid. So we train them on what to say and what to do when they see bullying take place.
And that is?
Assertive but nonviolent words. It's amazing, Perry. Just say, stop it, leave them alone. Yeah. One Oregon study says that if one person, they don't even have to be popular and they don't even have to be big, that if they use assertive but nonviolent words, that incident of bullying can end 58% of the time within 6 to 8 seconds. And we've improved upon that.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how hard our break is, so I'm trying not to mess up our commercial
No,
break.
okay. All right, we're fine.
Okay?
Yeah, we're fine. In fact, let me take a break here and we'll come back. We've got Paul Coughlin with us. If you want to join us, maybe you have some questions about it, because I don't know if some parents take it seriously. You know, their child may come home and say, hey, you know, so-and-so's picking on me. Well, you'll get over it, you know. Maybe they use the term picking because they don't understand the term bullying.
Sure,
okay.
That's right.
All right, if you have any questions, you're welcome to join us, 776-5368. We're going to continue this with Paul Coughlin when we come back. Well, we're talking about a very sensitive topic. It's called bullying, and Paul Coughlin's with us. He heads up the Protectors, and a great program. By the way, where can people get your information?
They can go to the website, theprotectors.org. We have resources for public schools, private faith-based organizations, and we also have recommended reading for different groups, what we call the theater of bullying.
Let me tell you, it's a tremendous resource, and you folks who are involved in your church, this is something you may want to talk about in your staff meetings and get Paul to come in and do a seminar there at your church about the whole subject of bullying. By the way, I got his little kind of a little rubber bracelet here, Protectors, and then it says courage, character.
And when I think of you, that's what I think of.
Well, there you go.
Do people know about our history? We've been, how many? What, 15 years?
Oh, I don't know. It goes way back when you had hair and I had hair.
When I looked like Barry Gibb. Of the Bee Gees, the Brothers
Yeah,
Gibb.
there we go. Well, we're talking about bullying. Let me ask you this. It comes in, we're thinking of bullying primarily children, and I get that, but what about parental bullying or maybe even bullying in the workplace?
Oh,
Do you cover that?
Well, we don't. I mean, I'm familiar with it, and I've been asked to speak on it, and I have talked about it a bit, but in order for us to really move that direction, we would need much more resources. It's just not the case right now. But yeah, parental bullying, bullies tend to have some similarities, commonalities in their history. One is that they tend to come from coercive parenting styles. And so their parents kind of bully them, and they just kind of learn, well, that's the way in which life goes down. To get what you want, you just push other people around and demean them, belittle them, weaken them so I can get what I want. But the one thing we need to point out is that when people bully, it often shows that they have an orientation toward life. And that orientation is that I believe I'm actually more important than you. So it isn't so much the coercive parenting style that creates the bully. It's the philosophy behind being coercive in the first place. Tremendously coercive and nasty people do not suffer from low self-esteem the way that we have been taught. More and more studies are showing that people who are identified as serial bullies have average to excessive self-esteem. Your average bully does not do it with a frown on their face. They do it with a kind of sardonic smile. They actually enjoy what they're doing to another person, and they're doing it because they believe they're a bit superior to other people. Your average bully is arrogant and full of themselves.
Really?
Yeah, and so their parents tend
sadistic.
to be... You're exactly right. In the adult world, Perry, in the adult world, we would call that person a sadist, and rightly so.
Wow.
But for whatever reason, we can't bring ourselves to do it in what we call the theater of bullying, where our children live. In fact, we need to stop calling it bullying in the extreme cases and call it what it really is, pre-criminal behavior. Statistically, today's schoolyard bully is tomorrow's penal system person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Workplace bullying, does it occur?
Sure does. I've experienced it, not at the Dove. And yeah, it's awful. False statements made intentionally, people bearing false witness, starting rumors, gossip, innuendo, setting people up. Yeah, bullies are pretty darn good at that in the workplace. Ideally, document. He who documents wins. Document that person's behavior, find out if it's illegal, go to an attorney, see if there's anything that this person's doing to violate state law, and if possible, go ahead and prosecute them. You know, we take a fairly hardcore line against bullying because we know what bullies are really about. Bullies really don't listen to peace, love, and understanding. Serial bullies do not. Serial bullies listen to what's in it for me if I don't change. The pain of not changing needs to be greater than the pain of change. They need to realize that something really bad is going to come my way if I continue this behavior.
Is bullying a control issue?
Well, it certainly is. It is, and they'll often say that people who bully have a higher need for control than people who don't bully. We question that theory, that thesis. We really question that. Most people want control in their lives, Perry. It's just how we're made. But what will happen is that most people are not willing to demean another person and express disdain and contempt toward that person in order to get what they want. So though we all have a desire for power and control, people, those who listen to their conscience say, yeah, I do want control, but control doesn't allow me to do this, doesn't allow me to do that. The bully says, I am pretty much more important than other people, and so pretty much anything is possible. Not only possible, it's probably permissible, well, because I'm superior to other people. It's really a very perverted and in extreme cases, evil orientation toward life. What they do to people is profoundly evil.
Wow. What about spousal bullying? Or is that just considered spousal abuse?
Yeah, right. It's interesting. Like, for example, the difference between cyberbullying and cyber stalking.
Yeah.
Cyberbullying is when it's 18 or less, or 17 or less.
Okay.
Cyber stalking is 18. It's when you're an adult, essentially.
Okay.
So yeah, again, abusive people tend to be full of themselves, tend to be very arrogant, very hard to reach. You talk to a counselor who tries to speak to an abusive person, and very, very they're very dismissive. What matters to them is them. And in many cases, what such people need is the gift of desperation. Mm-hmm. They need to be desperate enough to change. And unfortunately, as Dr. Laura says, we marry what we need. An abusive person often marries a more passive person because they're pretty sure they're going to get away with it. No one's really going to stand up to them. But by the way, the three vocations where bullying is the worst, teaching, medicine, ministry.
Really?
All three attract a more nurturing personality, right? And you know, particularly like nursing. Mm-hmm. They're a more nurturing person, which is fantastic. The problem is nurturing people don't know how to handle a bully. Nurturing people think that if I'm just increasingly kind and nice and I give in to this person, that I will redeem this person. Go ahead and try that. That's a good place to start. But if you're dealing with a serial bully, they'll just take more territory in those areas. If you're really, really kind and pleasant to a serial bully, they'll just abuse you more and more.
Can bullies be rescued?
They can be. I mean, there are some kids who are bullies and they don't know it. Henry Cloud put out this great book called Necessary Endings. I can't recommend it enough. Mm. And in this, he talks about 3 different kinds of people. And he's careful with reductionism, and so he knows there's more than 3. But we don't want to get caught in the weeds. Well, anyway, he talks about this one kind of person that when the light of truth is shown upon them, that they will adjust to the truth. And so if you get a kid, particularly a younger kid in middle school, and you say, you know, you've been bullying this kid, and they'll say, oh, I don't think I've been bullying him. And say, well, I'll give you some examples. This is what you've been doing. That kid who's reachable will say, oh, you know, I didn't know I was hurting him. And he's right, and she's right. They don't really know they're doing it. These are the kids who adjust and they apologize. So those are the reachable bullies. The unreachable ones is when the light of truth is shown upon them, they adjust the light. These are the ones who will tell you, and you've probably had employees who are this way, they're the ones who will tell you black is white. They're the ones who will lie through their teeth and still keep eye contact with you. Mm-hmm. They are the incredibly clever and often charismatic people among us, and they're among the most dangerous people you can have in your life. Wow. So they're very difficult to reform. They listen to power, they listen to pain, they listen to what's in it for me if I change.
Let me just say, if you want to join us and have any questions for Paul, the phone number is 7765368. And if you want to remain anonymous, we'll respect that request again, 7765368. We're dealing with the subject of bullying. I want to come back to the church if I can. I know this is going to be real touchy here, but let's deal with it, because I have seen the abuses in ministry where they think, well, I'm called of God, I'm the senior person here, and I can demand my way. So what I heard you say earlier is that people can be believers and bulliers.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's interesting. You know, Jesus talked about the sheep and the goats and the wheat and the tares. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, he says, don't tear up the tares because it'll damage the wheat. That's a somewhat beguiling statement that Jesus made. I don't know if you can be a serial bully and be a believer. I think you can be an accidental bully, not know that you're doing it. A lot of it comes down to what do you do when the light of truth is shown upon your behavior. Right. And if you're one of those people who just knows how to shuck and jive on a regular basis, I don't think that person would have the Spirit of God in them. I don't think they would be a believer. They're among the word diabolical comes from our understanding. I think it comes from the word to compartmentalize. And there are certain people who can just, for whatever reason, say that, well, in church I'll behave this way, and then outside of church I'll behave another way, and somehow they're okay with those distinctions. They're tremendously dangerous, and Paul didn't exactly have a lot of patience for such people. And Paul talks a lot about cutting such people out of the fold. And these people either change by inspiration or desperation. That's right. They either the late Scott Peck, who I had a chance to get to know before he passed away, he said such people either need to be healed or contained. And so what we do in the church is we try to heal those people. And this is the great thing about the future. It'll show itself. You just got to pay attention. You have to know what to look for. So you start the healing disciplinary process with such people, and either they've got the humility to stay in that process and they have the courage to stay in that process, or they tend to leave and they'll show themselves by what they do in the future.
In this politically correct world that we're living in, are school teachers getting it? Do they see the need to deal with the subject of bullying, or are they afraid to deal with it?
Great questions. You know, I do a lot of staff training in schools. I've trained thousands of teachers at this point. In fact, we might be working with 90 school districts in Texas here pretty soon.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. They're going to rent a coliseum or auditorium.
Really?
Sometimes when I speak to teachers, public and private, it's not just public schools. One study shows that bullying may be worse among boys in Christian schools than in public schools. Sometimes I want to say, now which list of studies do you want me to pull out? Do you want me to pull out the list that says that teachers get Fs? Because a number of undercover studies have shown that teachers are absolutely horrible, not only at spotting bullying, but when they spot it, how they intervene is often it's awful. Then there are some studies that are a little better than that. So by and large, most teachers have never really received any training on what it is, how to intervene effectively. So we need to move in that direction. You can't hold someone accountable for something they don't know. Where the rub is when the person has received training and they still refuse to intervene for whatever reason. Those people need to leave. Those people need to go find another job. And you'll see this in the documentary Bully. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it.
Yeah.
It's going to be in Ashland this week, June 14th, and I'm going to be there's going to be a panel discussion afterward. I'm one of the people on the panel. You watch this movie, and there is this assistant vice principal who, God bless her, she thinks she is doing the right thing. She is derelict in her duties. She really needs to change how she views the theater of bullying. And my guess is, I don't know if there's enough impetus to make that happen.
All right, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. Paul Coughlin's with us today. We're talking about the subject of bullying. And you know, we need to be heads up on this. Parents, you need to be heads up on it. Coaches, teachers, in the ministry, all over, life in general. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to join us. We'll be right back. Well, we're talking about bullying today. Paul Coughlin's with us. He is the founder and the president of Protectors. And again, your website for people who want more information.
Theprotectors.org. My email address is paul@theprotectors.org.
All right, theprotectors.org, a tremendous resource for you. And pastors and lay people, school teachers, whoever you are, let me encourage you to check out Paul's resources, and you may want to have him come to your school or your church. This whole subject of bullying is just it's an amazing thing, because let's fast forward to somebody who never got help with bullying. Now they're an adult.
Yeah.
They have been bullied all their life. Describe that person.
Boy, they are just there. Well, as Frank Peretti put it, they just have a wounded spirit. They might be alive, but they're not living. They will struggle with anger issues. They'll explode for seemingly no reason. Resentment is a big issue. They'll continually work in their mind old grievances over and over and over. They get caught in a kind of a spin cycle there, which will tether them often to drug and alcohol abuse. They just don't trust. Very hard time trusting anyone, an employer, parents, anyone in authority, because authority let them down substantially. Perry, we have letters from numerous Christians who tell us about their experiences in church, tell us about their experiences in Sunday school. I got a letter last week from a person from Awanas, their child's being bullied. And these people they're the walking wounded among us, and they're often so full of false shame and false guilt, very difficult for them to talk about. And they often need a form of grief counseling because they lost something, and the longer they go without getting help, getting this poison really out of them, just the more broken their life has become year after year, decade after decade. You know, we will say sometimes in church, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, and we think we're quoting scripture. That's not scripture. That's Friedrich Nietzsche, who hated God and who died insane in a ditch in Austria, I think, in 1921. Right. This is abuse. Saying that bullying makes you stronger is like saying sexual assault makes a person stronger. Bullying in its primary form is a form of abuse. It's the only form of abuse we tell people to ignore.
All right, now, how do you put the stethoscope, so to speak, on your being to find out if you're suffering from this and you don't even know it?
Well, yeah, oftentimes you need help from other people.
I mean, denial being what it is, maybe you have psychologically stuck this in the back of your brain, even though it happened to you, and now an adult, you've got all these issues, and you know what the cause of it is.
As the counselors will tell you, you just need to become aware. Awareness is a huge first step. So right now I'm speaking, people are hearing what we're saying. If this is resonating, do something about it. This is a portal moment in your life. Far from being something that's very difficult, from being awful in your life, this is actually a point of health. If you honor what's happening, be honest with yourself. If what we're saying really resonates within your soul, and this is something you've dealt with, and you realize it's harming you, go talk to someone about this. It's the beginning of a new life. In some cases, it's like being born again. Not the same as salvation, don't get me wrong, but usually fear is in the driver's seat of a highly abused person, and fear does a lot of things. It's like plastic wrap around your heart. Fear pretty much ensures that very low-grade love will get in, and it pretty much assures that low-grade love goes out. You can't really get to agape love when you're fearful, deep and abiding love. We're familiar with the scripture that perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
1 John. Well, the inverse is also true. Fear casts out love. You don't receive much love when you're fearful, and you don't transmit much love. Love is what life is mostly about. God wants us there, but in order to get there, you have to get fear out of the driver's seat of your life. There's usually lies associated with fear. Great acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. When you're around really fearful people, they're all worried about something, and you're looking around and you say, are we in the same universe? Because I'm not seeing this. You know, right. Well, that's because there's false evidence that's appearing real in the life of a very fearful person. Perry, if I could add one other thing.
Sure.
During this interview, I've had in my pocket this pen.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of geeky looking myself.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're used to that with me. So, okay, so here's a pen.
Yeah.
So for most of this interview, I've had this pen in my pocket, and it is a pen. It's a functioning pen.
Right.
It's also an undercover high-definition audio and video camera. And I bring this whenever I do media because, and I'll show it to you here, it's really pretty cool. We are sick and tired. I'm not recording, though I could record you. I could record you video, and not without your permission. It's got a little USB port on the very end of it. We rent this out to targets of serial bullying. We are sick and tired of kids being pounded to death, having their psychological skin seared from them, and being unable to defend themselves with evidence. We rent this out to kids, to families. We have glasses similar to yours with a camera off to the side. You would never know. You would never know there's a camera on it. We have headphones with a camera on them. You would never know off the earpiece. And then this right here could be a camera. We have one of those buttonhole cameras, the 60-minute camera things where they shock people to death. We have that as well. We rent this out to targets of serial bullying. And in Oregon, you can record video without the other person's permission, and you can record audio if you tell them. So if we have a kid who's being bullied and you say, listen, I'm recording this right now, and that person continues to verbally and physically assault, you can use that in court to defend yourself against that. Reinhold Niebuhr, who was the great Catholic thinker, who was on the cover of Time magazine, Man of the Year, said that the children of light need to be as shrewd as the children of darkness, minus the malice. We are using, right now technology is being used to harm kids, to humiliate kids. We're using technology to liberate children from serial bullying.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, tell me about your 4-point Freedom from Bullying program.
So that's our full program, and we bring that to schools throughout the United States every year. And what we do, Perry, is we train teachers We do a parent night. We train the community on how to deal with bullying. And obviously we speak to students on what they can do to diminish bullying and do the right thing, often afraid, in their own school. And then we follow that up with a two-part curriculum. Department of Health and Human Services studied freedom from bullying programs and said most are ineffective, they just don't last. We've taken that very seriously, and we've created a curriculum for the entire student body and then a curriculum for the people in the organization who get it. And that's called the Protectors Freedom Council. So we've created a program that stays alive on that campus really for generations.
If somebody's listening to us right now and they want help, I mean, they know they're being bullied, but they don't know where to go, what do they do?
Well, they can contact our organization, go to theprotectors.org, and there we do have a list of resources. Sometimes if they're an adult and they've undergone this, they really do need to go see a counselor, particularly someone who has experience with grief counseling. Grief counselors, I guess, are fairly rare. We have, I think, 2 in the state of Oregon. I'm trying to, I think it's Scott O'Neill is the one in Southern Oregon. And they really need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. Okay. If their child is being bullied and they want help, we have resources for them. We have some curriculum.
But they can contact you through the website.
Absolutely. Our book, Raising Bully-Proof Kids, is a great resource.
How do you bring God into the picture?
Well, all truth is God's truth. That's not me, that's John Calvin, right? And so what's really remarkable is, frankly, our public school presentation and our private Christian school presentation, it's about 75% the same. But what we're able to do within the faith-based organizations is really talk about the role the church has played in defending human dignity. Perry, for most of human history, it's been people of faith who have stood up for the oppressed and the broken and the shackled. And that is what targets of serial bullying are. You look at Wilberforce, Dostoevsky, Pope John Paul II, Mother Teresa, Harriet Tubman, Pope John Paul II, Martin Luther King. You look at Chuck Colson. You look, I'm sorry if I forgot anyone's favorite person, Desmond Tutu of South Africa. The list goes on and on. What do they have in common? People of deep faith who've stood up for human dignity and said, you know what, you're not going to treat people this way, not while I'm watching. That is how we bring, do we want to bring God into the public schools? You know how we're going to do that? Christian kids standing up to bullying. Christian kids not being cowards, not being sinful cowards, and being courageous, Christ-like people and say, you know what, leave that person alone, stop that, that's wrong, I'm going to go tell someone right now. That is how we bring God back into the schools. I
only got a couple of minutes left, but you had that, last time I talked to you, you had a young girl in one of your sessions who did just that. She defended a young guy being bullied. Can you give us that story?
Oh, Melody! I got a chance to meet Melody. In fact, it probably aired on your on the Dove, because the 700 Club did a story on this. Yeah, I had the pleasure to speak at this one school, Silverdale Baptist Academy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they sat me down with 12 protectors, people who graduated from the program. And little Melody, if she is 75 pounds soaking wet, I'd be surprised. She has such a high voice, I can't even imitate it, right? But she is a lion. She's a lion. She saw a little girl being bullied on the playground, and she walked up to the bully, must have been twice her size, and said, leave her alone. And the bully left her alone. Not only that, the bully apologized to the girl that she was bullying, and now together, the former bully and Melody go around and they defend kids on the playground. It's called The Power of Two.
The Power of Two. Wow, that's great. Well, Paul, this is fascinating. Thank you for your passion and your conviction and your dedication to this. It's called The Protectors. You can go to theprotectors.org and get all the resources and the material. You may want to prayerfully consider having Paul come to your organization and speak, and get him, because he's busy in doing really God's work and going after these children that and everybody that's subject to being bullied. Quick question in the few seconds I have left. Were you bullied?
Sure was. I was bullied in the home.
So is this how you kind of?
A lot of ministries come out of personal pain, yeah.
Well, I've always said whatever God saves you from or brings you through, He usually turns you around and makes you a minister too.
Yeah, that's right.
So you understand it?
I understand it oh too well. Oh too well. I know what it does. I know what it's like not to want to live another day.
Really?
Yeah.
So it can strike you that deep?
we're human.
Wow.
Humans are made that way.
Paul, thank you. And again, it's called The Protectors, and theprotectors.org. Get the resources. If you haven't got the recent edition of Southern Oregon Magazine, there he is. He's in there and doing a great work. Thank you, buddy. Come back soon, will you? Good to see you.
Love to.
Okay, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.